Off and running here on the Kaufman Corner podcast with you as always, me, Soren Petro. I'm with you. Pinch hitting for the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, who is on the slopes. He is skiing as we speak, night skiing. I don't know. I doubt he's skiing at night, but David Lesky, for you, of course, joining us. You know David Lesky, one of the best in the business, often contributor here to the podcast, always does a fantastic job on his Inside the Crown blog, always a great read, a must read if you're a Kansas City Royals fan. David will be talking some Royals baseball with us here tonight. We've got a lot we want to cover here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. We'll be talking about the free agent market. Is there anything left in free agency for the Royals to go for? Can they still add to the bullpen? Where does Jonathan India play? How does the outfield fit together when it's all said and done? Is there any help coming to the farm system, from the farm system to the big league club? What kind of win total are we feeling right now? We're talking about it right here. Kaufman Corner podcast.
This is the Kaufman Corner Podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running here on the Kaufman Corner podcast, and let's talk about it. David, the free agent market. Let's first of all sum up what they've been able to get done. Should Royals fans be satisfied with what they were able to get done? They had such a great run of it last year. Is there reason to be disappointed, or no? Should they be satisfied with what they were able to do?
I think there's reason to be disappointed, right? I mean, the offense needed more help than they've gotten so far. There's still a lot of guys out there. It's been a weird offseason. But they've also done a lot. They brought back Michael Wacha. The biggest problem in the lineup was their leadoff hitter, and they traded for a guy with a 350 on base percentage. And that's a big boost. Michael Lorenzen was a nice re-sign, given that they traded their number 4 starter to get that leadoff hitter. So I think that from that perspective, they've done some good things. They still need another bat. And I don't know where it comes from at this point. They're still trying. I mean, I think you've heard the same thing. They're not sitting there and going, well, so-and-so signed here, so we're not going to get him. But part of the problem, and I thought I saw this a little bit coming into the offseason and didn't dive into it enough. The free agent market did not set up well for them. The bats out there just weren't that good. And last year, the market set up perfectly. They needed a couple starting pitchers. There were a bunch of middle-tier starting pitchers. They picked the right ones. They did a great job with Wacha and Lugo, of course. It all worked out really well for them. This year, what they needed was a corner outfield bat that could hit fourth or fifth, really. And there were a couple out there, but I mean, Anthony Santander, qualifying offer. It's tough to give up a draft pick for a guy who I think is probably not the best fit in Kauffman Stadium, to be honest. Bad defender, doesn't get on base. His power, the home runs are going to decrease in Kauffman Stadium. I mean, people scoff at that. It's a bad home run park. It's a great hitter's park, bad home run park. And so I think it's set up poorly. And now at this point, they've got to figure something out, because I think it's difficult to go into opening day as a playoff team and say, okay, the outfield's the same as it was last year, because or third base. I mean, I could see them going either way. It's a tough find, but that's the reason that you're not satisfied, because they're still at least one bat away, I think.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because I'm with you. I think they're somewhat a victim of their own success, right? The success that they had last year was so impressive. I remember when J.J. Picollo had the exit press conference from the 22 season, or excuse me, from the 23 season. And he said, we need a couple of starting pitchers. We need an outfielder. I got to get some weapons for the bullpen. And, our feeling was if he could get like half of what he said the shopping list was, we'd be like, hey, well done, man.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished. And instead, they were able to go out and check off everything on their list. And he did it for, as it would come out later, like a couple $100,000 more than what he projected it would take to get it done. And so I think you come away with that and you go, okay, well, that's what every year is going to be like. What do we need? He'll just go check, 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 check on the box, and off you go. Well, first of all, last year's shopping list was one that, they really needed everything. So the market, and would we look at today if they went out and they added Hunter Renfroe and he gave you what he gave the Royals last year, we'd be like, well done. Like, no, our expectation bar went up. But for what they needed last year, Hunter Renfroe was a big ad for them, because while at times he kind of disappeared early, at times he also kind of carried him for little patches, right? So he ended up being a fine addition for where they were. It's just everything worked, right? Like if we were sitting here and they had added Jonathan India and this team had been, more where its analytical predictions were in the mid 70s or low 70s on the win total. First of all, they would have significantly increased their win total, right? We'd have been like, okay, they're making progress. They kept, let's throw in Michael Wacha, keeping him in the mix. He was a guy that could have left. They keep Michael Lorenzen. He doesn't go. And then they add an on-base guy. We'd have been like, onward and upward, man. Like, I think that this team could be 500. They're probably just a year away now. And instead, because they did so well and they outperformed what anybody's expectation was, now there's a feeling that all those things can be done again. And I'm with you. Who up here? Somebody had something that said, here, right here. Mark says, they spent money when they had a stadium vote. They're still cheap until proven otherwise. Well, they're going to spend all that money again. Their payroll is right at where it was last year right now. They're not pulling back. Now, are they spending more? No. Can they spend more? I think so. So Mark, I'll give you that they have not upped the payroll to this point. And I will tell you, you mentioned Anthony Santander. I think they were really in on Anthony Santander. I think they spent a lot of time. I know they spent a lot of time talking to him. And I think that just at the end of the day, there was just too much money, more money than they were comfortable with. And let me tell you something. If the Royals get every guy that they go for, then the organization is screwed, because there has to be guys that first of all, if they get every guy they're going for, they all blow, because it means nobody else is interested in them.
Yeah.
And if they get everybody they go for, it means they're overpaying at times, which is going to leave them stripped down at some other point. There's going to be other things that they don't get to. They have to compete for guys, lose on some, get some. They have to get the value and lose on the guys that aren't value. So I know we don't like it and it sucks. And you and I sitting here talking about topics earlier tonight about what we were going to talk about, and coming down as we're kind of starting to lean for the tape for spring training. Like, okay, what angle do we have on it here? Hey, yeah, I'd love a big fat signing right here to break down and go over it all. But I really do think that there's a lot of reason to believe that this was just a responsible, intelligent approach to an offseason that, you said it, we get excited every year and think every free agent market's just filled with wonderfully ripe, plentiful free agents. And that's not the case. And so this wasn't the best free agent market. So I don't know that we want them to get, a whole bunch of stuff, right? Like, I think it's just kind of this is a different year.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too that I keep hearing is the Juan Soto signing happened at a really normal time. I mean, right before winter meetings, the Sunday before, I think.
Well, normal for other free agents, kind of abnormal for a mega.
Right. And people looked at that and they said, $765 million for Juan Soto. All of a sudden, the free agent market went crazy, as if Juan Soto actually set the market for anybody. Juan Soto doesn't set a market for Anthony Santander. There is inner circle Hall of Fame market, and then there's everybody else. And the problem that I keep hearing, or I kept hearing, and still to a little bit to this point, is everybody thought, well, this is the market. Everybody is 1.5 times we thought they were going to be. No, Juan Soto is different. And so it set the market back entirely. And I'd heard, and I wrote about this last month and a half ago, whatever, that the trade market was then being crazy too. I mean, I heard about some asks for Taylor Ward that were just absurd. Taylor Ward's a good player. if the Royals got Taylor Ward, it would be a phenomenal move. He's actually the perfect fit for what they need. Middle of the order bat who can get on base a little bit, can slide to the leadoff spot if they need it. That's great. Pretty decent defender, hits some home run. I mean, you hit him fifth or sixth, you have a good lineup. But for what they were asking for him, and maybe still are, I don't know, that move's not going to get made. And so what it seems like the Royals have done is they've set out and said, this is what we will spend on these players. And if it goes above that, we're going to be responsible. And, what was it, Andrew Friedman who said something like, if you don't go outside your comfort zone or whatever, you're gonna finish second on free agents. I get that completely. I totally understand that. But at the same time, we want this team to be smart and we want them to make good moves. And I think that if you say, I'm just throwing a name out here, if they traded Blake Mitchell for Taylor Ward, I think people would be screaming about it. They traded a first round pick, top 100 prospect now in most rankings, not Baseball America, but in all the other ones, or maybe it's not Baseball Prospectus, maybe it's Baseball America has them, but top 100 prospect for Taylor Ward, people would say that's a terrible move. And Taylor Ward helps the team in 2025. So this market just got out of whack. And I feel like the Royals have said, look, if you're going to ask for this, then we're just not going to do it, which I don't know. There's good to that in the long term, but there's bad in the short term because they still need another bat and it's not out there right now.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, I don't think there's anything in free agency. The trade market is whatever it is. We kicked around the idea, Rany and I, about Jerks and Profar, which I to be honest with you, you mentioned Santander and giving kind of the on that. Well, let me give you the on Jerks and Profar. Like,
yeah, same.
Anyone who really hardcore follows it or is a fantasy baseball nerd, like I've seen, I was talking to somebody, in baseball, in a big league organization, and I was talking about Profar, and I said, I said not to bring up, my stupid fantasy league for this, but I said he has gone unbid on, right? Like we do an auction and $1 is the minimum bid. I said he has gone. There have been years where like he was out there, nobody wanted him. Right. And we do a deep league and it's AL only, NL only. It's not the two combined for other fantasy nerds out there. And like, that just means you suck. Right. Because we have a couple of bench guys and everything. And I'm like, and he goes, really? I go, yeah. I go, and now he's like this hot commodity. Like, I mean, I get it. He had 1 year, a really nice year. And unless your people can look at him and go, he's totally changed the swing. He's totally changed his approach. Here's how he did it. Unless you understand how he put up those numbers and why it's repeatable, I feel like you're buying super high on a guy. Like you go get Jerks and Profar when nobody wants him.
Right.
When he's,
and there are some metrics that showed that it was legit. And I wrote about it last week because what else was there to write about? But
right. And I believe that, but it's what is that worth and how repeatable is it? But when legit,
I wouldn't have given 3 years to it.
You would give how many?
I wouldn't have given 3. I mean, maybe 2. I could see that. I could see 2 and 25, and he got 3 and 42. I think that's responsible. And again, fans can argue. You can argue. Is being responsible actually smart? I mean, yes, long term it is, but short term it stinks because your outfield is what it is.
Yeah. No, I agree. So there isn't a bat on the free agent market that excites you.
Not for what they need. I mean, I'm looking at the list right now.
I don't see one.
I Austin Hayes.
I see some names
platoon bat.
Yeah, sorry, you said Austin Hayes.
Yeah, he'd be a good platoon bat, I guess. I don't buy Randall Grichuk. I don't.
I can find some names that people will be like, I know that guy.
Yeah,
but it's no different than another Hunter Renfroe.
Right.
And they're not in. They needed Hunter Renfroe last year. They don't need another Hunter Renfroe. Because they have solidified that spot with Hunter Renfroe. So now you're looking to get better than Hunter Renfroe. You don't need to pay more to put the same type of guy out there. Like, I'm not trying to run down Hunter Renfroe. I want to be clear. They need it. He's a legitimate big league outfielder. But now you're looking to get better.
Yeah.
And so I don't see anybody out there that's better. The only thing would be I would be intrigued with some platoon possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about how the outfield fits together here in a little bit. Like, that would be something I'd be interested in, but I don't even see that really, right?
Yeah.
That for What and I'll see it if they get to surprise and there's still guys out there and somebody's like, okay, I'll take a prove it deal. Give me the 1 year with some incentives on the low end and let me get back out on the market. Okay, then I'm all ears. Right, but until you get
there's an argument for like Alex Verdugo, right? It's not good, but
right.
He's had some years. What 2 years ago was he above average? I mean, it was just last year was his bad year, right?
Yeah.
Am I wrong here? Yeah, 100 OPS plus in 2023 with the Red Sox. Not great, but I mean, would you take 264, 324, 421 for the outfield?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's an improvement.
Right.
He's got to prove it because he was 233, 291, 356 last year. But I mean, I could see that potentially.
Yeah. But I think we're at a point now that you almost got to wait till Arizona and let a guy bottom out.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's what you've got to do. Let's talk about the bullpen. We'll do it right after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? They've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, how about the David? How about the bullpen? Right? Do we see some bullpen help out there? That, and I think that's what usually happens. Everybody takes care of everything else, starters, the position players, and then everyone starts grabbing arms before them. We've seen the Royals do that. Going into spring training, even after spring training starts. You like any bullpen arms to try to solidify what was pretty good coming down the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, they figured some things out in the bullpen. One of the big questions to me is Kris Bubic a starter? And I think that he's probably the favorite for the fifth starter spot. But if he doesn't win it, and they did show last year that the favorite may not win it. I mean, Jordan Lyles came to camp as the fifth starter, and he ended up, what did he throw, 12 innings, whatever it was, before that weird journey he had. So, I mean, they if Kris Bubic doesn't win that job, bullpen probably is fine. Urseg, Bubic, Schreiber, Hunter Harvey's coming back, which you can love or hate, but I mean, he was really good for 2.5 years before a back issue. If he's healthy, I think you feel like there's at least a chance. Lynch was really good down the stretch, all that. But yeah, I mean, look at the free agent market right now. You go on MLB trade rumors. I mean, you look down the list, there are names that can help any bullpen. I mean, John Brebbia had a rough year, but the stuff is there, right? Kyle Finnegan saved 30-plus games. Carlos Estevez is still out there. Who else is out there? Kenley Jansen is still there if you want to get a proven closer. You don't want Craig Kimbrell. But there's a lot of names. David Robertson's still out there. Spencer Turnbull's still out there. He turned himself into a really nice reliever, swingman type. Ryan Stanek is out there. He's a guy I thought the Royals might go after last year with the Quatrero Hoover connection. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there. I don't know that they'd go for a lefty because look, they've got Serpa and Sam Long and Lynch and potentially Bubic and Evan Sisk. They just added to the 40-man roster. So they have plenty of lefties. Not that you would say no to a good arm, but the left-handed relievers left are iffy anyway.
Right.
But there's a lot of guys out there. I mean, I think that if you can't upgrade the offense, which I don't know if they will be able to or not. I think they're not going to stop trying, but I don't know that it's going to be out there. Then maybe you make a strength a bigger strength. And you say, look, we're not going to be able to get 5 runs per game, which, by the way, without a leadoff hitter last year, they were averaging nearly 5 runs a game until Pasquantino got hurt. And they added a leadoff hitter. I'm not saying that we're going to get the same 10-win season out of Bobby Witt Jr. The offense was not a problem until September. It was a problem at times until September. But in general, they were, I think, the 5th best offense in baseball, run scored-wise. Up until the day Pasquantino got hurt, which, yes, you need more depth. If one injury torpedoes you like that, that's a problem. But I think it's important to remember that. But if you can't get more offense, shorten the game. Make it so 4 runs is going to win every time. Make yourselves the 2014 Royals. And I think there's an opportunity out there for that. And look, free agency in the bullpen is always a risk because relievers are so fungible. But I think that there's a chance they could upgrade there.
I do too, and I don't know where it is, and I think it's one that you just let the market dictate for you. I mean, they are, like I said, they were in the meeting with Santander. How do you pronounce it? I just say Santander because it's dumb American. But they were in the mix for him, which speaks to how different a spot they are right now. I think they had to go an extra year to get Seth Lugo. They don't have to do that anymore. They're now a playoff team, and a playoff team that guys like playing in Kansas City, right? They like that there's not a million of us, media people over them. It's not an overly aggressive market. It's a great place to raise a family. It is a place that if they're winning, people want to come to Kansas City.
And Matt Potrero is a player favorite. 100%.
For sure. And they know you're going to get used right. They know that the analytics are behind them. You're not going to be asked to do things you don't want to do. And that I even would point back to last year about how well, early on when the bullpen wasn't good, I know they got a ton of innings and everybody stayed healthy in the starting rotation, and that's just not going to happen again this year. But it did speak to how patient Matt Quatraro was, that he potentially gave away some games, I should say, because he wouldn't just keep, he kept running out relievers even if they weren't any good because he wasn't going to kill the rotation.
Yeah.
And so I do think that, what could he do if he had lights out of the back end with multiple guys, then that makes your starting rotation that much better. So I don't think it'll be the worst thing in the world if you've got money, there's still ammunition to go get a guy or a couple of guys, or if you were going to, if you had $10 or $11 million for a bat and you can come away with 2 premium relievers, I think you're a better ball club than the bat you're going to get for $8 or $9 million.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, if you think about a back end, let's, I'm going to give 2 names randomly, David Robertson and let's go Ryan Stanek, who he's got his issues with control. You add those 2 to the bullpen with Urseg, and John Schreiber he was iffy last year at times, but he was really good at times too. And maybe Kris Bubic ends up throwing some bullpen innings, and he was really good out there. And Angel Serpa was great in September, and Daniel Lynch was great in September. There's a lot of ifs, but when you add a couple guys who aren't ifs, or less ifs, I guess, there's always an if in the bullpen. All of a sudden, that bullpen, you feel really good about a game after the 5th inning. And if Cole Reagans has thrown, because sometimes his pitch count can get up there, if he's thrown 88 pitches through 5, you don't feel like you have to push him in that 6th inning because you can go to Schreiber in the 6th and Robertson in the 7th and Stanek or whatever in the 8th and Urseg in the 9th and feel okay about that and not think, oh, we're playing bullpen roulette. Who's going to be terrible today? Because more often than not, nobody's terrible. And so I think that you're right. That's a great way to help the rotation because they're not going to throw as many innings. I look, they can't. It's not impossible. I don't think anybody would or should predict it.
Yeah, Cam says, I've been saying it, Bubic as an opener / middle reliever. I feel like he'd flourish in that role. He flourished as a setup guy. So I think we could check that off our box. I think the question is, can he flourish as a starter? Yeah. And if he can, that's more important. And they need one of those after moving Brady Singer. I don't think you move Brady Singer unless you believe Kris Bubic is going to get that job.
Yeah, probably, especially with Kyle Wright, I think, is the guy that people are pointing to. I don't think he's ready.
The comments when you've heard JJ talk about him, do you hear him thinking like we can't wait to just add him to the rotation?
No, and I think that I see it more as Chris Medlin from was it 15 that he joined the rotation?
That's exactly who I compare him to.
Yeah.
100%.
Same guy. I think that there's upside 100%. The thing about Kyle Wright that I find so interesting, he's had one good year. It was a great move to get him. Do not get me wrong. To get him rehabbing, pay him whatever it was, $2 million, 1.4, it doesn't matter. Keep him for a year while he's rehabbing, get him ready to go in 2025. It's a great move. I don't think you can expect great things out of him. I think that there is upside for great things. I think you're right. I don't think they traded Brady Singer because they feel like Kyle Wright's there. I think they traded Brady Singer because they feel like Kris Bubic is there.
Right.
And we'll see. I have my doubts because the fastball, if he can keep some of the velocity he gained in the bullpen with he has some vertical break on his fastball was much better in 2024. He made some shape changes to it. If he can keep that with most of the velocity game, I buy it. And I like Bubic as a starter. I don't buy him as the 2024 Brady Singer replacement yet, but I could see it happening at least. And I think that they at least believe it. And he looked great for 3 starts in 23 before he got hurt. It's also 3 starts, but
it wasn't 31-2 strikeout to walk ratio, but it was 16-2. It was still amazing.
It was pretty good. Yeah. I mean,
and that was with the 3rd start kind of going south as he was clearly
it was the third. It was the 3rd start. It wasn't, not the 4th. Yeah. And that was when he got hurt against the Braves. It was cold. It was rainy. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of reason to be optimistic about Bubic as a starter. And like you said, we know the floor. The floor is he can pitch in the 8th inning of a playoff game.
Yes.
Maybe not to Giancarlo Stanton, but he can pitch in the 8th inning of a playoff game. And that's a good floor to have. That's a good spot to say, okay, we know that we can rely on him in a big spot in October. It'd be great if we can rely on him in game 3 as a starter, but if it's a reliever, that's fine too.
I mean, Mark's dominating the chat room right here, but he's got some good stuff here. At least he'll throw more than 2 pitches. Looking at you, Brady, and I think that's a great point because, and that's why again, you don't move Brady Singer because Brady Singer in the regular season is valuable. But let's keep in mind he could barely get into the playoffs.
Yeah,
and it's because you couldn't throw him against lefties. Yeah. And I think with Kris Bubic, there is that's Mark is right. And I think, if Kris Bubic is what we think he can be, and I'm not saying all that he can be, just what we think he can be, because all that he can be, I mean, you're talking about a high-end guy with that strikeout to walk ratio. If he's going to carry a 8-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio throughout, which, I think that's too small a sample size, but if he does, you're talking about an elite starting pitcher, right?
Yeah.
Like up there. We'll see how many innings he can go, how far he can go, but I think they moved Brady Singer because, again, they have confidence in him. But if you get to the end of the year with the arsenal that Brady Singer has, to Mark's point, he's a potential playoff starter. And I think Brady Singer always looked like, okay, he's proven that he's more than a reliever, but he has not proven that he's more than a reliever in the postseason.
Yeah. What did he face? It was Aaron Judge. It was the only batter he faced, right? Yeah. And part of that was situation. I mean, they only played 2 games in the wild card round, and there was never a spot for him. And then there really wasn't a spot for him in the ALDS until that one spot. But if you can fill the biggest hole in your lineup with that, I think that's worth the trade. And I mean, I know we're litigating the past now because they did that 3 months ago, but yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I think it bears talking about, because I think it gives us some indication of what they think about what's there. Either they love Alec Marsh, or I don't want to say love. Either they're very confident that Alec Marsh or Kris Bubic is going to get that job and is going to handle it, or because you can't say Michael Lorenzen because they didn't have Michael Lorenzen, and now they've added him back into the mix. So that is a safety net. If you wanted to say, ooh, maybe some people had some second thoughts. Okay, fair point. I don't think that's the case. I think they always wanted Lorenzen back. I think Lorenzen probably took a flight around the market and didn't get what he was offered and said, this is a pretty good spot. I'm going to stay here. Yeah. And I think that's probably why he came back. But I think, and then we speak about the bullpen, we can, throw that name into the mix as well. Like somewhere they're going to have a really good long guy, because Lynch was good in that role. And if it's not, Bubic, the bullpen does that. That's what's amazing is I think it'll be interesting when we get to where we're feeling on the win total, because they haven't really lost anything, right? They've lost Brady Singer. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. They've lost Brady Singer, and they've added Jonathan India, which that was the trade. And they've added Weimer, but you feel like they have the replacement. I don't know how they have pitching depth, but they had pitching depth because they haven't had any pitching depth whatsoever, but they actually had pitching depth, and they were able to turn it into something they really needed. So yeah, I'm, and I think that also speaks to where they feel like they are with the bullpen as well, that they're confident that they at least have a good start. And when you see what they were able to do in season last year, I mean, the confidence has got to be soaring. I think with the fan base.
Well, you brought up Alec Marsh, and I keep forgetting about him, honestly. But I mean, look at his first 8 starts, and he fell off, but he had a 3-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. He had a 2.7 ERA, which was a little bit deflated, inflated, whatever. he was probably more of a 3.5 guy at that point. But if that's your 5th starter, and you have to feel, I feel really good about Quatrero, Hoover, and Sweeney and Bove figuring out, okay, this is the time to pull the plug on this guy. This is the time to not. So, if you can get 12 starts from Alec Marsh and 17 starts from Kris Bubic and 10 starts from Noah Cameron and 8 from Kyle Wright, whatever the combination is, doesn't matter. I feel confident in their leadership right now that they will get the right starts from those guys. And so if you get, I don't know if you're going to get 95 starts from Reagans, Lugo, and Waka. Let's say they get 70 from those 3, 75. Let's go 25 each. There's a good chance that they're going to miss. Every one of them is going to miss 5 or 6 starts. Sure, let's go with that. I feel confident in the other, 87 starts, figuring it out with Lorenzen and Bubic and Marsh and, again, Noah Cameron and Kyle Wright and whoever they might acquire in July. And I feel confident in this group to get it right for those other 87 starts.
Well, I'll go you a step further on Marsh. Even if Marsh is exactly the 5 ERA that he ended up with, the 5 ERA that has a high-end ability to it is pretty good, because I do think that Matt Quatrero has a pretty good feel for when to get him out of there. Like, I don't remember the bad starts of Alec Marsh just tanking the whole game and the whole season, like, oh my God, Marsh again. Like, he maneuvered well with Marsh. Marsh's upside is that he can compete. And if he ever gets the consistency of it, then you've got a really good starter. I'm with you. So I don't even mind if Marsh is the 5th guy. And then you just rattled off all the other options. And I want to, like Roper said this, really, Lynch as a reliever? Yes. Yeah. Lynch.
He was great.
Maybe you didn't catch the end of the season, but he did a great job. Do I believe that he's a hammer that's going to come in and, punch guys out in the postseason? No, because they didn't go to him. They obviously don't either. But we're talking about the guy he's there for the marathon.
Yeah, but you know what? He had 51 plate appearances against lefties. They had 5 hits, all singles.
Yeah.
That's a weapon. And the other thing too, there is value in, Seth Lugo is going to have a start where it's 4 innings and 6 runs. It's going to happen. There is value in a guy who can give you 4 more innings. Even if he gives up 3 runs, who cares? You've already lost. It's 6-1 in the 5th. You go to having a guy like Daniel Lynch is huge, because there are going to be games where he does that and he goes 4 shutout. And he looked really good. You don't let him see a lineup a 3rd time, a 2nd time, a lot of those. I think Daniel Lynch is a different pitcher. And if he's your 3rd best reliever, yeah, I'd be worried. If he's your 6th best reliever, 7th best reliever, I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so I think the bullpen is definitely going to be a strength. Let's talk about Jonathan India. Where does he play? Well, where would you put him?
I'd put him at 2nd, honestly, because I'd probably put him at 2nd. He's not played anywhere but 2nd base since 2019 in the minors, when he played 3rd base, with the exception of a little time in spring training last year. He played some left field, and he played some, I want to say, first base. Because you remember the Reds, they signed Candelario, and they had Matt McLean and Ellie De La Cruz and, oh gosh, the guy who got suspended for 80 games, the prospect, Marte, is that? Was it Marte? They had a lot of guys for very few spots. And so they were moving India around a little bit, and the McLean got hurt and Marte got suspended, and he ended up back at 2nd base. So he has moved around in spring training, but he doesn't have a good arm. And he's had some injury issues, which are different than Massey's injury issues. He wasn't bad at 2nd base last year. I think you're more likely to get Michael Massey playing well in left field than Jonathan India, in my opinion. I could be way off there, because it's all speculation, because neither one's ever done it. But I think that's how I would do it.
My vibe is that I think the Royals are higher on Michael Massey's defense than everybody else.
Agreed.
Don't you feel like their opinion when you talk to people is that he is a plus defender?
Yeah, I think he is a plus defender. I don't think he's as good as they think he is.
Do you think India is a plus defender?
No, I think India is average. the thing that I keep coming back to is them talking about Michael Massey. And he was on, which podcast was he on this week? I can't remember which one it was, but he talked about how defense bending over for ground balls at second base is what flares up his back when it flares up. And so with that in mind, I think that's a lot of why they've talked about Massey in left field, because yes, you still have to bend over to field ground balls. It's just not as many as at second base. And, again, we've never seen it, so we don't know. I mean, India's at least played left field in Cactus League games. So maybe that, I don't know what that counts for on the experience scale, but I think that to me is why I feel more like Massey will be in the outfield than India, but I could see it go either way, honestly.
I think it'll be India.
You think?
Just because I think I think your point about the back is a good one, and I think they need to listen to that and pay attention to it. But my feel is that they still like the defense of Massey at second.
Well, India's faster too. So that's in Kauffman Stadium outfield, that's important.
But everyone questions the arm. I'm hearing some third base.
I've heard that too.
With India as well, and that Maikel Garcia better come out of the gates hitting. Yeah. He came out of the gates with a couple of home runs and then maybe got a little home run happy. But, I think Maikel Garcia is getting his last shot to be the guy every day. And then I think, and perhaps he'll be I think if it goes the way they want it to, Jonathan India will take to left field and he'll be your left fielder.
I could see it. And I mean,
I think that's what they want to happen. Do I think it's going to happen? I'm not sure.
I mean, baseball's arm strength. Let's talk about that real quick. India's arm strength was terrible last year. I mean, it was 9th percentile based on Baseball Savant. 2 years ago, it was not great, but 22nd percentile. I think you can play that in left field. I think you can live with a below average arm in left field. I don't think you can live with a bad arm. Now, and the other thing too, Michael Massey's arm isn't good either. So, I mean, one of his biggest issues at second base was the shift, because he was making throws from shallow right field to first base, and he was struggling with it. When the shift went away, the defense got better because he didn't make those throws anymore. That concerns me in left field, right? I mean, that's a problem. If you're struggling with making throws from short right, you're going to struggle with making throws from the wall in left field. So there are concerns there, but I think you're right too. I think that it could end up that by Memorial Day, Jonathan India is playing third and Michael Massey's playing second. And that's that.
Yeah. I look, for me, I think I personally feel like you went and got India and you want him to hit. And what frightens me is if you start playing him in different spots that you screw up his hitting, and that's what you really got him for, was to get on base.
Yeah.
And I would caution the Royals too, like, you got India because Massey can't get on base enough, right? Yeah. So I know you love Massey, and I think this organization really does like Massey, but he wasn't doing the job. Nor was anybody else. I'm not putting it all like he was a failure in the leadoff, but nor was anybody else. You felt like you had to have this guy. So if he is not hitting when he's playing in the outfield, like, what if you get him and he has a 320 on base percentage, a 305 on base percentage? His batting average is 240 something because he's running around making errors, and everybody's turning the corner at second base and going to third on him all the time, and fans are grumbling. Like, I don't think that's a spot you want to be in. So I kind of feel like, for me, I think if you go get India, you get him to play second base.
Yeah,
that's fair. Play where he's comfortable. But I don't think that's their thought process.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, what has Michael Massey really done to where he wouldn't have to move around? Like, is he a guy that's proven himself in the big leagues to such a point that it's like, no, I'm a second baseman. Like, I remember Desi Relaford. I know, a blast from the past. But standing at Desi Relaford's locker, and he had gotten off to a good start. And if people don't remember him, he was a utility infielder, but a shortstop like most guys when he came up by trade. And he came to the Royals on a bad team. I can't remember if he was a free agent. I think he was a free agent.
I think he was free agent. It was 02, right?
Yeah, and he got off to a good start. And I remember standing there, and it's like, hey, man, and at that time, who was it? The old angel, Sean Figgins. Sean Figgins. Right, Chone, Sean, he pronounced it. Anyway, but Figgins played all over the place and made a lot of money. He got some good contracts because he could play anywhere around. And I'm like, hey, hey man, is that your? He goes, I'm a shortstop. And I'm like, well, you're not, because like you're bouncing around to teams and like no one wants you to be their shortstop. So how about embrace this role, and then your okay offense looks a lot better if we know we can plug him in wherever we need somebody. If we have to play a week with him here, or 15 days or 20 days with him at one spot because our guy is on the IL, fine, we'll do it. I feel like Michael Massey, he has not done enough in his career to where he should not be willing to go wherever you tell him to go.
Well, I think he's willing. So for that, but the one thing that Massey did last year, at least, he hasn't done in his career so far, and I think there's reason to doubt it, is he hit for power. He hit the ball 190 ISO, isolated slugging percentage, was the only players better than him. Bobby Witt Jr., Paul DeYoung in 37 games, and he flamed out pretty quickly, and MJ Melendez. Massey's ISO was better than Salvi, better than Vinny Pasquantino, better than Hunter Renfroe, better than Tommy Pham was when he was, he hit the ball. He got extra base hits. And I think that, and this goes back similar to Daniel Lynch. If Michael Massey's hitting first, your lineup is probably bad. If Michael Massey's hitting seventh, you're probably okay.
Yeah.
And I think that if they can get to a spot where Michael Massey, wherever he's playing, whether it's second, whether it's DH, because I think DH makes some sense for him, whether it's left field, whatever, if he's hitting sixth or seventh, I think you feel pretty decent about your lineup. But if he's hitting first or fifth and sixth isn't that different. But if you can push him to the bottom half, you feel pretty good. If he's in the top half, there's room for upgrade.
Yeah, for sure. We'll talk about the outfield, how it all fits together here in a moment. First, remember, we're always brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, as we talk about the outfield, let's start with this first, David, and that is the new stance on MJ Melendez. He's got it all figured out. Just real quick, where's your optimism on this being the fix?
I mean, I'm not optimistic about it. I appreciate a guy willing to work. And I appreciate the fact that MJ Melendez has said, look, what I'm doing didn't work, and I'm completely changing everything. Guys have done this, so he wouldn't be the first to succeed. It's really tough, though. I mean, he's 25, 26, whatever he is. He's probably hit that way since he was 6, maybe younger, and with a coach dad, maybe 3. I'm not optimistic about it. But that said, it looks clean. It's a much better swing. It's his biggest issue is making contact, because when he makes contact, the contact is good. And I think this will at least mitigate some of the swing and miss issues. The setup, the load, the lack of bailing out. I mean, it's a much more traditional stance and swing. And I don't think it can hurt. At this point, how can you be optimistic? And it's been a weird career, because he was league average as a rookie. I mean, he didn't get there the way people wanted him to, but he was roughly league average. He was terrible in the first half in 23, really solid in the second half in 23. Then he came out in 24 and you thought, okay, he's figured it out. No, terrible again. And then he had like 200 plate appearances where he was really solid again last year, and then went in the tank again. And I think a lot of that is because the stance and the swing led to inconsistency. So I have some optimism that quieting things down can help. But I mean, how can you predict anything positive at this point? Because we just haven't seen it long enough.
I expect nothing. I hope for right. Like, I think that's the way I would phrase it. So, but I do think we're going to get a platoon of him and Renfroe. Do you agree with that?
Probably. I think at this point, I think that there's a few permutations in the outfield they could go with.
So I think the dream scenario is India takes to left field and plays, takes to the outfield and plays left field pretty much every day. They platoon Renfroe and Melendez in right field. Kyle Isbell man center field with Weimer as the super sub, and to a lesser extent, I don't think anybody's looking at Weimer going, got to get him this many at bats. I think they look at Weimer and go, a lot of tools. Let's see if we can bring it together. And I'm always much more optimistic that a pitcher with stuff can be harnessed than I am a toolsy position player can suddenly hit. Right. But I think he is the other outfielder. And that gives them, as you know, India could then go back to the infield and play. Melendez is your emergency catcher.
I think they could still keep Blanco in that alignment.
Yes.
Because if India and Massey both are kind of super subs in a way, I think that could work.
Yeah. And so that's what I think would be their dream scenario. I'm not sure, no battle plan survives combat. I'm not sure what they're going to ultimately get. How do you think it fits together?
Well, so the one thing I'll say about Weimer, I don't think you can expect anything out of him, but against lefties in his career, it's only 139 plate appearances, so it's not like it's a massive sample, but 263 average and 481 slugging percentage. When you combine that with Kyle Isbell against righties, and I had it up and I closed it, so I'm stupid here, but Kyle Isbell against righties, at least in 2024, he was, I think, around league average. I'm pulling it, a little bit below, 694 OPS, which is a lot closer to league average than people probably realize because the hitting is way down, 94 OPS plus against righties. So, that's pretty close, especially with his defense. If Weimer can hit lefties that well and Isbell can hit righties, you have a probably league average platoon in center field bat-wise, and both players can play defense. You've got a good center field there. So I think that's what the Royals hope for. But yeah, I think what you said is probably about right. I could see Massey or India in left field. I don't know. I think you're probably right. As I'm listening to you and thinking about it more, I think you're probably right. That's what they want. With India, I keep saying Isbell, India in left field, but I could see it go either way. And yeah, Renfroe against lefties, that's not bad. MJ against righties, he's got to hit better. But he started playing better in 2024 and then fell off again, like we said. But he started hitting better when he stopped playing against lefties. And he had a good 2-month run because he mostly only played against righties. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's how you get the most out of it. And I think they have the right manager in place to do those platoons and get the most out of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm encouraged. Is it looks to me like they're going to lean into the platoon.
Yeah.
And the guys are going to play multiple positions. They're going to make it fit. They're going to try to get the best bats into the lineup while having a primary focus on defense.
Yeah.
Right. And so, that's where I think, can the offense and defense don't always meet, but we know that they want to catch it. That's one thing the Rays usually did, was always catch the ball.
Yeah.
And so we know that they want to do that. So yeah, I do see a scenario where, like you said, I think MJ Melendez and Renfroe in a platoon could be league average, which is pretty good numbers because you expect something out of the right fielder. Center field, you're average with above average defense. And if left field, I think, I'm going to suspect below average defense, but I think you could get, average offense, less power, more on base than what you usually get out there. And so if they end up with a league average outfield, when it all comes together, with Bobby Wood Jr. at shortstop, Michael Massey's upside, Vinny Pasquantino's upside, I think that the offense looks like it, an average outfield makes this offense pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, again, they were, for the most part, really solid last year. They were very, very thin. And that's the problem. And so they need somebody to step up or get somebody. My preference would be to get somebody. But again, we talked about that earlier. Who are they going to get? I don't know. And look, a Taylor Ward trade might materialize. Adolis Garcia, I think, is still out there if the Rangers are going to make a move. He and Renfroe had basically identical numbers last year. So I don't know that he's an upgrade necessarily, but 2 years ago he would have been. So, I think that there are guys who could be available as we get closer to spring, the Angels were in on Santander, which I think would have made Ward way more available. Didn't get him, so he's not. And I think that there are possibilities there, but I mean, I think that if they don't get somebody's got to step up. And it could be the Melendez Renfroe platoon.
Yeah,
that maybe that's the answer, or maybe it really is that okay, they got their left fielder in the India trade, whether it's Massey or India. Maybe that's the outfielder. Maybe they go out and they sign Yohan Moncada. I haven't heard anything that they've been interested, but they go for an upside play on a rebound guy, and he rebounds. I could see that.
Yeah,
but they have to find somebody else, and you're right. That'll make him average or better.
We did our best case scenario and how the Royals would get there. My best case scenario is that they acquire an everyday outfielder, like a Jermaine Dye, before he was Jermaine Dye, like when Royals got Jermaine Dye the last time, that they acquire him, or they go so far as to go ahead and get Jermaine Dye when he's Jermaine Dye. That would be the dream, a proven commodity that's going to step right in and hit 30 home runs and be a run producer into this lineup. But I think more likely would be getting the guy, at the deadline who's about ready to come up. They're moving an arm again for a position player who's about ready to be there. And they bring him up and he hits. Like I can see that scenario. I think they'll be active at the deadline always. So that's the good news. I know you're writing, and we encourage everybody to check out David Lesky's great blog, Inside the Crown. You're going to be writing tomorrow about help from the system, right? And that is one of the ways they got help this year. It may not have been all the people you thought, but as we mentioned, I know we got kind of a Lynch response, but Lynch was help from the system. There were a number of guys that did come up and give them help. Can they count on that if they need it this year?
The system is better than it was last year. It's still not there. The problem that they ran into, and they've run into the last couple of years, is the upper levels have been just bare. I mean, you look at who were they going to go to last year? They had outfield issues, and Drew Waters couldn't get a shot because he's not good. Nick Prado couldn't get a shot. When Vinny Pasquantino got hurt, they went out and they got Yuli Gurriel instead of giving Nick Prado, what would it have been, 90 at-bats? Whatever. That's how little they thought of Nick Prado. It's a little better now. It's still more pitching up at the top level. Like Luinder Avila added to the 40-man. He could be up. Noah Cameron, I mentioned him earlier. Eric Sarantola. All those guys were added to the 40-man roster. Evan Sisk also. I think you could see Gavin Cross this year. I'm not necessarily saying he completely earns it, and he's not going to look like the number 8 overall. Was he 8 or 9? Whatever it was from a couple years ago. But he was solid in Double-A. If he's solid again in Triple-A and the outfield is struggling, Gavin Cross is going to be up. He's going to get a shot in July. Javier Vaz, I think, has a chance to be up as a super sub type guy later in the season. I think that you could see a couple guys you don't think about much. Beck Way, reliever they got from the Yankees in the Benintendi deal. Here, he was a starter then. He's a reliever now. He's been okay out of the bullpen. He's the type of guy who I think could pop at any point because he throws 98, and he's got swing and miss. I think that there's quite a bit of upside there in the bullpen. May never get there because relievers are whatever, but I think he's a guy. And the other guy, before I'll get to the main guy, Steven Zobak, I think is really interesting. He got up to Double-A and just dominated. He's got a very good feel for pitching. He's got good stuff. I'm still not 100% convinced he's a starter. I think he could be. I'm not convinced he's not, but I do think he's a big league reliever. And I think that if they needed some help, I think he could be a guy who would come up. And the other guy, the big guy, Jack Caglione, they think he can be up. I don't think anybody in the organization says he's going to be up in July or August or whatever. But I don't think anybody in the organization doubts that he could be. And I think you're going to see him in the outfield starting in Double-A probably. I imagine that's where he starts. He's going to play a lot of right field. I think the idea, the hope, best case scenario for Caglione for the Royals is he rakes in Double-A, he takes to right field with his good arm, and he's up playing right field at the big league level on August 1st. I think that's what they would love. If they could throw a perfect scenario out there, that's what it would be. I don't know if it will be, but the upside's obviously there. I think they believe he can move really fast. He his Florida teammate, Wyatt Langford, moved really fast. And they're not similar players, but they have similar upsides in that they cover the plate exceptionally well. They're physically ready at the point they were drafted. And so I could see Caglione coming up at some point, July or August in 2025.
Yeah, I think that'd be a huge boost for the team for sure. And so it is nice.
A lot of tickets for that game.
Yeah, for sure. Particularly in the outfield where people can grab home run balls.
Yep.
All of a sudden those become even more coveted seats. Let's wrap with this. How many wins right now are you feeling? We're not. This is not our official season prediction, but just going in, knowing that probably most of the lifting's been done. I'll bet that they grab at least one, if not two, relievers to add to the mix. I've got a win total in my head. What are you thinking?
Looking at the projections, I'll start with that. They're generally around what Vegas total is 82.5, right? Is that the over under 83.5?
82.5 is what FanDuel had it at.
I think the Zips projection has them at about 83, 81, 83, somewhere in there. A couple of the other ones I saw 84. I'm kind of in that 83, 84 range right now. I always believe, we've talked about this before, I always believe that a team can be plus or minus 10 without even breathing heavy. There are so many things that 10 wins over 6 months is less than 2 a month, obviously. So if you're looking at an 83 win team, you're seeing 73 to 93. But I have them around 83, 84 right now. Where are you?
I'm at 84 wins right now is what I'm feeling. I'd like to see more. I'm with you in the sense that I think you can play up 10 and down 20. I think when it starts to go bad, guys get surgery and so there you can always bomb down. Yeah, I mean, you might think you can play up 20. I don't know. You said you can go up or down 10 with nothing.
20 would be tough.
Okay, so I think you can kind of go whatever you are. If it's like this is a 82 win team, you can play up to 92 if it all works out. Things schedule healthy. Schedule kind of shines on you. You miss, whoever the big ace is when they come to town. You can thread the needle that way. But I keep coming back to I just don't know how they can do what they did starting pitching wise. But but where I bring myself back around is that I think they can be better everywhere else.
I keep coming back to the fact the biggest issue in the lineup was leadoff hitter, and they got a 350 OBP.
Right.
I mean, if nothing else changes, they've got the same lineup with a 350 on base percentage at the top. I mean, I don't know if that's enough to overcome losing probably 15 to 20 starts from Reagans, Lugo, and Waka, and missing out on 2024 Brady Singer, who, by the way, I don't think would have been 2024 Singer in 2025. I think that there was at least a decent chance that he was going to be 2023 Singer, or at least 2021 Singer. But I mean, I don't know that it makes up for that, but I do. I see basically the same team, but a better leadoff hitter.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. It's in a lot of ways you're disappointed with what they haven't done, but also they won 86 games with a 91 win Pythagorean record.
I guess the other thing I'd have to say is I think Bobby Wood Jr. is likely to back up a little bit.
Yes. You don't want to call it a regression because
it's
whatever, but if he's an 8-win player, that's 2.5 wins down from last year. So that is a big drop.
And Indy is the only thing that I think is going to get, although Massey, if he plays every day, and you're right, the power, that's a spot to get better, but I don't think they're going to be better with Salvi. I don't think Fermin is going to hit any better than he did. I mean, I think, he was so cold at the end, it kind of balanced out how hot he was early on. I think Renfroe is what Renfroe is. I guess Melendez is the one piece that could really.
I think Melendez and Massey are the two who could be that guy in the 5 spot. I'd predict Massey way before Melendez. To get there. But those are the two guys who, if somebody's going to pop, it's going to be one of them.
Yeah, for sure. We're always brought to you here at the Kaufman Corner by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. They've been making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City for over 30 years. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lot. That's GAN, asphalt, and concrete. David, thanks for filling in, buddy. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to spring training, man. Looking forward to it. It's coming up soon. And we thank you for listening to us here on the Kaufman Corner Podcast.